Hello friend, it's Tonton, and in today's video we're gonna talk a bit about the stats in the game, correct some things I've said in the past and kind of put some of the bases for the follow-up guides I'm gonna re-record, which is about charms, about chief gear, things like that. Like, the advice I'm giving is not fundamentally changing, it's not just coming from the same place, and I will try to correct that part so you guys have a better understanding about why we, or in that case, why I suggest, to prioritize a bit, for example, health and lethality over defense and attack and defense, but I won't be as black and white as I used to be with like defense and attack being bad and health and lethality being good. It's not where it's coming from. In the past, when I started my journey with Whiteout Survival, I mostly check YouTube videos or everybody else. And the consensus at the time on YouTube guides will be like, without explanation, why will be attack and defense is overall not good, just go health and lethality, and you will hear that repeating over and over. So when I started to make my own guides, when I started to share things, with my alliance before doing videos, I was like following that because that's what's the information that was available at the time, or that I could find at least. And in between, I've learned that there are better information available. And as everywhere, when sometimes you think and you don't, and that's okay as well. So some of the information I put out there is not the best one, or is not the most accurate one, and that will be corrected over time when I realize that there is a better source, a better way to look at it, and that that's just part of putting myself out there, and that I'm really at peace with that. And if you guys have knowledge that you think is better or is more appropriate to the current situation in the game, please share. We are here. I'm here to learn as well. I'm here to share what I know, and I cannot know everything about the game, and I've been learning so much already by doing that for not even a year. So feel free to share as well. So we actually all benefit from that. Me sharing what I know works, for example, in some events, in some things, is so everyone can benefit from it. I could keep it for myself, and I could rank in seasonal event a lot more easily because, some of the things I've shared, I found myself and I could not find it somewhere else, when it was available, a year ago or something like that. So I could benefit from it just for my own pleasure or, for my own reward in the game, or I could share it. And I decided to share everything I know. So please do, do the same thing in the other way. So everyone is learning and is actually, have access to the best information possible in the game. That's the goal of this channel. That's the goal of the Discord as well. And we'll talk a bit about stats very briefly. It's not going to be a very in-depth, a very long video. I'll cover the kind of why do I want to correct and to explain to you guys with some examples. And then I will re-record again like some of the other videos with that in mind. So, the charms and everything. So without further ado, let's get in the video. We will go on Discord for that. That's something you might have seen. So that's coming from another game. So there is State of Survival. That is, I don't know if it's meant by the same company. Actually, I did not check, but that's the formula they found out works in that game, and that seems to work in Whiteout Survival. These kind of things. Of course, a new game can decide to reinvent the wheel, but the way the game engine is mathematical formulas for combats and things. So there are a few options, and at some point, even if the dev never told us which is the one they picked, people by testing and understanding and looking at what was done in other game and testing done on other game, they kind of get to something that is at least very close to the truth. And it might be slightly different. We don't exactly know how it works. But at the end of the day, this formula is giving predictable results that are aligned with what we see in the game when we do tests about damage, about defense, about all of that. So that's, if it's not perfectly matching what the game is using, it's close enough that it is matching. So we use it. That's what people use to understand stats and to make decisions nowadays. So that's coming from another game, but that seems to be for everyone doing theory crafting and everything. They agree that's what to use as a basis here. So for your damage, you have your attack, and then you have. So I'm not going to go too much detail. What we care about is these parts, right? You have your total attack stats, so that's the percentage that the game gives you, multiplied by the lethality stats. So overall, you multiply your attack by your lethality, and you divide by 100, and you get the amount of damage. You do the same thing for defense and health. You divide by 100, you get your defense. And that's, the game had the process to calculate how much damage it does and how much goes to infantry, how much goes to lancers, how much goes to markmen. On top of that, you have to add skill of heroes, skill of troops. So it's far, far more complex, right? It's far, far more complex, but the basic is here. So if we zoom out of this, if you look a bit at what it means, if you had, for example, on the left is attack and on the right is lethality, if you had 100 attack and you had 100 lethality, if you multiply 100 by 100, I mean, it's not, in that case, it's damage because you're gonna divide it by 100 as well, right? So even it's a very, very simplified version. 100 by 100, you know, is what? It's 10,000. You divide by 100, it's 100 again. So that's what you get. So that's not giving you any, that's the damage it's giving you, right? If you have 200 attack, 100 lethality, you will get 200 damage, but that's the other way around, right? If you have 100 attack and 200 lethality, you get 200 damage. So lethality is not better than attack per se, right? If you look at the formula. The thing, though, to consider is if you have 150 and 150, that's doing 225 damage. So you have the same amount, you have 300 in total, but the way it multiplies is giving you more damage, right? So in that case, it could look better that you have a bit less attack or a bit more lethality, but it's more the way it multiplies. Something to understand, if you think about, if you go beyond the math and you think about what is Whiteout Survival and the sources of the stats, attack is a lot easier to get. You will get so much from heroes, and if you look at any reports, you will get far more attack often in the report than in lethality, right? Right now, the rally leaders for it, they have 3,000 attack or defense, and they have 2,000 health and lethality. I'm kind of making a rough number, but it could be, 2.5 for attack and, 1.5 for lethality, something like that. So where the advice is not changing is like, you still need to make an effort to increase your lethality and your health, because your attack and your defense, they will go up naturally. But as well, if you look at the formula that you just multiply, in a simplified version, you multiply the two of them to get your damage output, one is not really that better than the other. So the first advice will be actually to get the easy stats, to increase overall your stats, to increase your attack, to increase your defense, to increase your lethality, to increase your health. Then when you have to choose what to pick from, like either from packs, either from events reward and stuff, it will be more important to go for your lethality, because naturally you will get less. So when your research starts to take very long, you might want to do health on infantry and lethality on marksman and lancers first, right? But it does not work to just do health, forget about defense. It does not work to do lethality, forget about attack for marksman and lancers, right? That does not work. If you look at that, if you make many simulations, and you've totally forgot the attack column or the defense column, right? It works the same way here. You're gonna find yourself with an overall output of defensive power or damage or whatever the game is calculating that is lower. So you cannot neglect one or the other, but again, like my suggestion often was to go on Charm, because Charm is better than Chief Gear. Chief Gear is not as useless as I thought it was, and I said in my Chief Gear video, which I think is one of the next one I will record to correct that. But Chief Gear is actually, I find it very expensive for what it is, in terms of the amount of percentage it's giving you, compared to extra shard on new heroes, for example, and new heroes are temporary, so Chief Gear is permanent, so that's where there is a good benefit to it. Not Chief Gear have also, extra deployment capacity, but it's a very tiny bit. But so, it's why I will still advise Charms over Chief Gear, why I will advise Hero Gear over Chief Gear, for example. So that do not really change my advice. It's just not coming from the same point where it was just, we thought that attack and defense was bad and people just tested it, right? People just did rallies and understood that the more lethality and health they have, the more impact it seems to have, and they would not really understand why. And that's another point I feel is quite important when we talk about the game, is like, sometimes you can talk about the numbers and the theory crafting, and that's great, but that's not for everyone to understand the math. Even myself, I'm always double checking before I say something with people on Wosnell, for example. So thank you very much, guys, for, just to answer my question and to provide like sometimes confusing answers, because that means I need to dig a lot deeper than I thought I would need. So it's like I'm asking a question and they're like, yeah-ish, it's kind of like that, but not really like that. It's actually quite more complex. So we'll stay at the simple level, because that's still where am I on some level as well myself. And I don't think it's actually really needed to understand the game in depth to make good decisions, because if you understand the bases, you know when to, what to go for, and that's good enough for most of us. And if you're really a nerd, and if you're really like a geek about math and about the game mechanics, and you want to dig, then you can go beyond, and you can join the Discord of the Worst Nerd guys, and you can ask the question, you can look at their math, you can look at their simulation, you can look at all the tests they are doing, and then you can geek out. But that's a very small fraction of the population, and I'm not sure many of these people are watching my videos. And if you do, you are very welcome as well to jump in the comment to help correct, like people did on the last video that I removed about the stats because there was too many errors in it. There are no point in keeping a video that's doing more harm than good, right? That's not the intent of the channel, not to confuse people. So I'll try to keep it simple, because as well, in all honesty, that's my level of understanding, and as well to just so it appeals to everyone. If we take, I just want to take maybe like a concrete example. If you have, and you can do that with many other numbers, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to divide it by 100. So to, it could be like that to maybe make a bit simple, more simple number to understand. Because again, when you multiply your health and your defense, your lethality, and your attack, if you look back, the formula is dividing by 100 here, right? As you can see. So if you had 1000 attack and you had 600 lethality, and whether you buy a pack, whether you can, it's Frosty Fortune, you can get some charms, or you can get some pet stuff, or you can get some widgets, and you're like, okay, what do I do? And if you have to think about which stat to upgrade, you will always want to upgrade the lowest one. That will give you the most impact, because if you multiply, if you have 1,600, you add, should you get for 1,010 lethality attack, or 610 lethality, which one should be best? If you make the calculation, there is a difference of 41 points, right? Here, if I divide by 100 again, because that, else it's gonna be two more zero. But just, just to make it numbers a bit easier to understand. So it will have a lot more impact to do the second one, right? That's quite a higher number. At the end of the day, it's not crazy in terms of percentage, but it's still quite a higher number, and that's really good for you. So because the lethality number is lower than the amount of attack, if you have 10 points, it's a bigger in proportion compared to 600, compared to 1000, right? It's a bigger percentage of 600 when you upgrade 10 than it's a percentage of upgrade when you upgrade from 1000. I'm not a mathematician guy, I hope it's making sense. So you will want overall by default to focus on the lower stats that you have. So unless you have far more health than attack, than defense, for example, you should probably focus on health most of the time. And that does not mean you should skip defense, right? If to get 10% defense, it costs you $1, and to get 10% lethality, it costs you $10. If you look at your stats, it might still be better to go for the $1 and not spend the $10. If you want to spend the 11 and get both, do it as well. But if you want to spend like the minimum money, or you're like $10 is too much, or if buying some things in an event is too much, go as well for the far cheaper stat. That's why as well for me, I started to do a bit more chief gear. I'm not doing much chief gear. I'm not buying a lot of chief gear. But there are some packs, if you spend a bit of money, that are not too bad. Oh, they are gone today? Are they gone today? Maybe I should have bought them yesterday. But there was a pack I sometimes buy here that, this kind of pack, that this one, right? Because you don't really need design at that stage of the game for me anymore. So that's better. So I'll buy that $5 every week. Is it a lot? No, but I get a lot of value because my chief gear is one of the things I invested the least in the game. I invested more in hero gear, I invested more in chief charms, I invested more in research, I invested more in fire crystal. So like catching up with FC10 where am I in the game with little money makes sense on chief gear, because I get a lot of upgrade from these packs currently, and it's at some point, especially right now starting to be at red gear, it will start to slow down. So I've been catching up, and I got a lot of extra stats that did a lot, because it will be multiplied to my lethality and my health that I really focused on in the past, right? And here I'll get attack and defense. So that's kind of the balance, right? So, it does not work to just do your hero gear, for example, and not doing any chief gear, for example, or do not do any heroes, because you will have a very high lethality and you will multiply it very, very low attack, and that's not gonna work for you. So that's just the basis I wanted to put out today for the first video. I know it's a bit of a shortcut. It's far more complex than that, and if you understand the far more complex, side of it, good for you. That's 99, 98, 95% people watching here, they won't go to that much depth. So I hope it is close enough, and it should be, because I've checked again with the people on WoSnerd. Hopefully I did not say anything stupid. If I did, let me know in the comments. But that will be the basis for the upcoming videos about when we redo things and when we think about like upgrading our accounts. Okay, get the quick wins first. So maybe one big one is really research, because you will see some people that go really hard on health and lethality here, because that's what we have been saying, and me included, and nearly all the other YouTubers and the guide makers and nearly everyone in the community have been saying that when you might have a crazy amount of cheap attack defense that you can get. And of course, consider the troops. Attack on infantry is not that good. Defense on marksmen is not that good. So these ones are often, when someone is like telling you to think black and white, the truth is probably in the gray. There are some things that are black and white, and sometimes I'm trying to make my video black and white because it's very easy to understand. It's easier to tell people what to do and what not to do than going in between and say, in that case, you do this, in that case, you do that. And then in that case, you look at the formula, you calculate, you do an Excel sheet. So, it's not that convenient for most people, right? So trying to keep it simple, but as well practical and as close to the truth that we know of today as possible. And hopefully that video is achieving that. So thank you very much for watching. Consider subscribing, consider joining the Discord. I'll be away for the weekend. I'll see you Sunday evening. I might make a video tomorrow, else I'll see you Sunday evening for a stream for Foundry. And we'll put in practice what we've learned today, and we'll hopefully use that to kick opponents. But next week, we have SVS prep. I'm gonna push. I've said 3 months worth of things in my bags. A lot of everything. T11, everything is exciting. So I'll make some videos, live stream about pushing. Hopefully I'll see you there as well. Thank you everyone. Much love to you all. Enjoy the weekend. Happy life. Enjoy life as well. Cheers. Much love.